Hello everyone, let's begin for 31/7/2018, the Hindu analysis. The first news item, over 40 lakh left out of draft NRC in Assam. So this was with respect to the report which has been released yesterday, that is on July 30. So it is with respect to the people who have been a part of Assam. So there were like 40 lakh people who are not been listed under the NRCs. So now what they have to do is they have to go and set up with their claims, and they can give up with their proofs and find out that why it has not been listed, or they can get listed by September 28, 2018. And sidelines, we also had the calmness which was being maintained in the state level, with that where Mamata Banerjee alleges it as in vote bank politics. So the same thing, it was almost like 3.29 crore applicants and more than 40 lakh were left out to the complete draft, as we discussed. And this is with respect to it was like 5 years exercise which has been completed now, and the cost incurred is 1220 crores. And that's about it. So you have the NRC Nagarik Seva Kendra, where the people are checking their status with respect to why it's not been listed, what are the areas that they have to come up so that the names would be listed under the NRC. So this is about it. And the next news item, stop Chokshi's travel, India tells the Antigua. So this is with respect to India is asking the Antigua and Barbuda to stop the billionaire diamond trader Mr. Mekul Chokshi from traveling around the world. So this is like he is actually committed an additional illegal act by maintaining his Indian passport after acquiring one of the Caribbean highland nation. So here if you see here, he has received an Antiguan passport in the winter of 2017, but he did not disclose it to the Indian authorities as usually done by those who acquire the citizenship of the other countries. Once a person acquires the citizenship of the other country, he has to inform the Indian country, the government out here, and he has to give up with his citizenship. But this person, Mr. Chokshi, has not done it, though he has got an passport of Antigua, that's a Caribbean highland. And meanwhile, they're also asking them, that is the High Commission in Georgetown, he alerted the Antigua and also the Barbuda government in writing and orally also to confirm his presence and detain him and prevent his movement by the land, air or the sea. So this is with respect to not allowing him to travel further, because he is a person who has been associated with the PNB scam, that's a Punjab National Bank scam. Nirav Modi, he is uncle of that person. Mr. Chokshi is uncle of Nirav Modi. So this is about it. The next one, why no arrest in Manipur killings, Supreme Court asked the CBI chief. So here this is with respect to the Supreme Court has actually questioned the CBI for filing 2 charge sheet against 14 persons. So this is charging them with the murder of innocent civilians, criminal conspiracy, and also tampering with the evidence of in the Manipur fake encounter deaths without bothering to arrest their particular persons. So the Supreme Court is actually asking the CBI, so you have allowed the 14 people to roam around the country who have been atrociously very dangerous to the common civilian people. And this was one of the informations to why the Supreme Court was questioning on the CBI. And the Supreme Court also said that the accused should normally be arrested. And in cases where the investigation is pending, the subject are subject to the custodial interrogation. So the person, suppose he is being accused, and which means that they should be, normally they have to arrest them and take them to the custody. And the bench left it to the CBI director to take a rational decision whether the accused cases should be arrested or not. So again, the court has given the ball into the court of the CBI director to take a decision rationally and see what would be the best for the people out there, and also get the people before the courts. So this is about it. And the next one, brimming giant. So this is with respect to the Idukki dam. So here you have the Idukki dam, which is part of Kerala. So this dam is under the red alert right now, because the current water level at 9 p.m. was almost like 2,395 feet. But the capacity of the full reservoir is 2,403 feet. If this capacity is being, if it's getting overloaded, there would be a chances of flooding, and the areas of the Idukki dam might be under the disaster. So this is one of the informations and the situations with respect to the Idukki. So basically it's under the orange alert as well. So you can just look onto it. You have the entire details about the dam. The next one, leg up for private sector participation in defense equipment manufacturing. So this is basically with respect to boosting the private sector participation in domestic defense manufacturing. that is DAC, we call it as Defense Acquisition Council, has approved the implementation of the Strategic Partnership Guidelines. The main aim is to revitalize the defense industrial ecosystem and progressively build the indigenous capabilities in the private sector to design, develop and manufacture complex weapon system for the future needs of the armed forces. So this is basically the private sectors are getting involved with making up with a sort of an defense equipments, and this defense equipment would be completely indigenized, where the private sector they can design, develop and also manufacture whichever is needed for the armed forces. So this approval or a sort of an guidelines is being given by the Defense Acquisition Council. By doing this, there would be laying on the emphasis on incentivization of the transfer of niche technology and higher indigenous content, so that we don't have to wait for from another country where they can where we have to transport it or they would be exporting. Those things can be completely stopped here. And the SP model, the strategic partnership model, has 4 segments. One is submarines, single giant fighter aircraft, helicopters and the armored carriers, or we call it as a main battle tanks, which would be specifically opened up for the private sectors. So these are the 4 segments which would be open for the private sectors right now. So under this policy, one Indian private company would be selected in each segment. For each one of the segment, one company would be selected, that the private company, which would tie up with the shortlisted global equipment manufacturer. So the government from our end, they would be shortlisting the global equipment manufacturer, and the company has to get tied up with that particular manufacturer. And the manufacturers, they will be transferring the platforms or the method by using the technology transfer. So through the help of the technology transfer, we would be able to do the designing, also have a code of manufacturing within our country, that is indigenously. And the DAC has also approved the platform specific guidelines for the procurement of the naval utility helicopters, sidelines, even we have this. And the DAC has also approved for the acquisition of 8 FPVs, that's a fast patrol vessels, for the Coast Guard at an approximate cost of rupees 800 crores. And this would be indigenously designed and manufactured by India again. So this is one of it. So these are the important approvals to what the Defense Acquisition Council has been given. So this is about it. The next one, ban on oxytocin, doctors feel the pinch. So this is with respect to oxytocin. So the last year this was completely dealing up with where this particular governments have actually banned the oxytocin from July 1st, right, which came into July 1st. And was intended to curb the hormone injections misuse in the cattle. But the impact is being felt by the pregnant women who require the medication the most. So the government has banned this oxytocin right now, but the thing is, particular kind of an oxytocin was being given to the cattle because they have to get the hormones more better, and this was misusing which is happening on the cattle. But there is an impact which has been felt on the pregnant women, because pregnant women requires this oxytocin at the higher greater level. So we have Mr. Dr. Datar, he tells that it is a super important medication of that particular field, and he is also telling that by help of this oxytocin, they would be able to get in effective uterine contractions during the labor and preventing the postpartum. So this is a very important one where the contractions of the uterine at the time of delivery can be really used on, and after the preventing of the postpartum can also be used. But if we are not able to create the urinary contractions, then they are telling that the doctors, there would be chances of C-section deliveries which would be happening on. So they are telling that it is at most important to lift off the ban of the oxytocin. That is one of the important informations to what is being discussed. And we have the lopsided attitude, that is the Karnataka based public sector company has actually been appointed and authorized to make and supply the drug in the country. But there is no communication to how to obtain the drug through this particular channel, because the government is completely banned. There should not be any export and import with respect to the oxytocin. And there is one Karnataka based public sector company which is actually making up with the supply and also the drugs of it. But the other sectors of the doctors from the other parts of the country, they are not able to obtain. How is that we are going to get up with the medicines? And the medical field with respect to the pregnant women are taking up with a high risk because of the ban of the oxytocin. So this is about it. And next one, Supreme Court slams the customs of genital mutilations. So a couple of days back also we just discussed about the genital mutilation. So here the female genital mutilation has numerous health hazards associated with it and amounts to violation of right of life and dignity of the women. So Chief Justice of India, that's Deepak Mishra, he made a statement about it. and there is one bill petition which has been filed by the advocate Sunita Tiwari, that is to ban the female genital mutilation which had been performed in the name of religious practice. So they are actually abusing the girls with respect to the religious practices, and one of the advocate Sunita Tiwari, she is actually asking the Supreme Court to ban this female genital mutilation, and Supreme Court also mentioned that it is a violation of the right of life and also the dignity of the women. So there's again few specifications which has been mentioned about the bodily privacy. So the senior advocate practice of the female genital mutilation cannot be considered as an essential practice in religion, as it can be brought under the ambit of the POCSO Act, that is protection of child from the sexual offences. So here this is one offence such as being given, and no one can violate the integrity and bodily privacy of the women in the name of the religion. And here the government has also urged the court to issue the directions against the practice. Even the government is not in good favor of the particular genital mutilations of women. Even the government is telling that the court has to give certain directions against the practices which is being performed in the name of the religious. And there was one important kind of a community called the Dawoodi Bohra community. So it was one of the petitions which was being filed again before the Supreme Court, where the Dawoodi Bohra community is telling that the female is not a female's genital mutilation, so what they've performed as in religious practice, and they're telling that there's nothing to deal with the genital mutilation is just the religious freedom to what we have in our community. But the Supreme Court nowhere has told that the Dawoodi Bohra community is doing up with the genital mutilations, but right now it's hearing the outcomes and also the upcoming news with respect to the Dawoodi Bohras. So we have to just wait on this, and that's about it. And the next one, women rice farmers to be trained in the Philippines. So this is with respect to 8 women farmers have been selected to visit the International Rice Research Institute, which is in Philippines, and this is to learn the new farming techniques as a part of the initiative of the DBT, that's the Department of Biotechnology. And here the summit which is gonna, or the workshop which is going to happen is on 6th to 10th August 2018, and so that the women can be exposed for the advanced farming experience and the technological advancement. So there are people, that since women have been taken from 5 states, that is Uttarakhand, Assam, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh and West Bengal. So you have to understand that there was a census which had happened in the year 2011. So 55% of the women workers were agricultural laborers and 24% were cultivators. So however, only 12.8% of the operational holdings were owned by the women, and 25% of this land belonged to the marginal and small holding categories. So this was also one of the important issue which was being highlighted on the economic survey 2017 and 18. They are given a kind of an percentage level where the woman has been working and to what extent she has the agriculture farm under a particular name. So this is about it, showing like what is an impact or what is the situation of the women in agriculture in India. And one of the important thing of the economic survey 2017-18 was that there was a very good recommendation which had come. This is to acknowledging the feminization of Indian agriculture. Feminization of Indian agriculture, and at least 30% of the budget allocation for the women beneficiaries in all ongoing schemes and the projects, programs and development activities, where that it should be an initiation where the women-centric activities would be focused more on self-help groups and to connect them to the micro credit through the capacity building activities. So here it is about the last year economic survey spoke about with respect to the feminization of agriculture, so that the agriculture is being inducing more on females, and females contributions to the agriculture is more compared to the men, because men are tending to have a migration from the rural to the urban just because of various reasons. But still, even after all these things, women have been able to still continue with the agriculture in the rural areas. Taking this into consideration, this was one of the highlight what the economic survey had brought it, and at least 30% of the budget. So whatever happens on a budget, that is the month of February and March, the budget allocation should be more on to the women, that 30% has to be allotted to them. It should be more beneficial, and also they said that whatever the programs or the schemes has been put forth by the government year after, it should be on women centric. And the more focus should be on the women self-help groups, so that they are getting connected to the microcredit through the capacity building of the activities. So this is about the women rice farmers. On the limelight of this, now the 8 women farmers have been moving on, and they have been selected to visit the International Rice Research Institute, which is in Philippines. So this is about the news. And the next one, sex workers won't be criminalized. So we know that there was a bill which was being passed on. So with respect to it, now there's a statement and clarity coming by the Women and Child Development Ministry, telling that defend anti-human trafficking bill and asserted that the proposed law did not criminalize consenting the adult sex workers and the migrants. So here the bill is very clear, it's excluding the consenting the adults from its purview, while it criminalizes the trafficking for the purpose of pushing a woman into the sex work, and it does not punish the act itself. So this is, they brought the clarity out here, and they also said that the bill does not criminalize the migrations as well. So the adult workers, that's the sex workers, they will not be criminalized as per the bill which has been introduced. That's an anti-trafficking bill. And the bill the ministry also said that it maintained the bill, it went behind the legislation and also gave a proper primacy to victims and also the rights of the privacy and dignity. And it also added a lot of international standards. For example, it is a global compact for safe and also the orderly and regular migration, United Nations Office on Drugs and the Crime Model Law Against the Trafficking in Persons, and the Office of the United Nations High Commission for the Human Rights recommended the principles and also the guidelines of the human rights and the human trafficking. So the ministry is which has actually formulated the bill, is also telling that we have added all the important international standards which has been listed by these particular aspects, and we have made the bill more specific, and it has been to the highest important to the people out there. So that it's making clear that the sex workers will not be criminalized by this particular act. That's a bill which has been there. So this is about it. And the next one, bill to seek the deaths for lynching. So we know that mob lynching is getting intense more in the society. So now the center is soon trying to get a bill proposing the death penalty for the crime of lynching. And lynching is a barbaric crime and no civilized society can accept it. So on the grounds to why they are telling that we have to promote a bill with respect to the death penalty, because it's a barbaric crime and this cannot be entertained or accepted in a civil society to what we have right now. So this is one of the main reasons to why the bill would be brought by the center. And the 5 members of the Natjogi tribe community, that's a nomadic tribe, they are from the Solapur district, where they lynched of the mob in Dhule districts in North Maharashtra on suspicion of being the child lifters. So there's one community which is being accused with respect to the child lifting. So this was also one of the issue associated, and just because the Natjogi community approached the minister has been taking this particular concept where he has been even getting in touch with respect to producing or formulating a bill with respect to the lynching. So this is about the next news item. The Lok Sabha bill passes on rape punishment. This is basically the Lok Sabha has passed the Criminal Law Amendment Bill 2018, so that the girl who is being raped under 12, the person who would be punished with a death penalty, and if a woman is being raped, punishment there would be like a imprisonment of 7 years to 10 years. So earlier it was 7 years and now it's been moved on to 10 years. So the bill amends the IPC, just because we have brought the announcement of the imprisonment of the concerned persons. So the bill is amending the IPC, then we have the CRPC, the Indian Evidence Act, and the Protection of the Child from the Sexual Offence Act. So by amending all these things, so that the announcement of the death penalty which would be imposed and also increased from 7 years to 10 years can be brought under execution. The minimum punishment for the rape of the girl, as we already discussed, under 12 will be 20 years of rigorous imprisonment, and the maximum being the death sentence or the life imprisonment. So when it comes to the imprisonment, it will be 20 years, or it might even move on to the maximum level, that the death sentence. But earlierly, the rigorous imprisonment ranging from 10 years to life imprisonment. But now it has been announced. For a gang rape of a girl below 12, the punishment will be the life imprisonment or the death again. So minimum punishment for the rape of a girl under 16 will be 20 years. You have different categories of the age which is being given. 16 will be 20 years of rigorous imprisonment and extendable to the life imprisonment. Earlier was 10 years of the rigorous imprisonment. And a gang rape of a girl below 60, the punishment will be the life imprisonment. And the minimum punishment under the bill for the rape of a girl over 16 is 10 years and extendable to the life. So this is under the section 376 of the IPC, and the bill also provides for investigation of the rape cases within 2 months from the registration of an FIR. So here the bill is conveying that So once then FIR is been filed, the investigation has to start on within 2 months, and while there was no timeline earlier for disposal of any appeal for a conviction in a lower court, but right now within 6 months they have to move on their appeals, otherwise it's not been possible. So earlier they used to have an anticipatory bail, but there will not be anticipatory bail year after for a girl who has been raped below 16, and the government is also looking on to set up the fast track and a special courts for the rape cases. So this is about it. The next one, the Center for Removal of the Nota from the RS poll. The Supreme Court, that is, it actually reserved the judgment of a PIL, that is a public interest litigation petition, which won the full support from the center seeking to scrap the Nota option in the Rajya Sabha elections. So you should know that Rajya Sabha election is an indirect election. So here the talk is with respect to, is Nota being applicable to the indirect elections like Rajya Sabha. But right now the Supreme Court has reserved the judgment on it. The court may indeed the rule against the two circular issued by the Election Commission of India on Jan 24, 2014 and November 12th, the subsequent year which had happened, giving Rajya Sabha members the option to press the Nota, none of the above, button in the upper house polls. So this is with respect to the Election Commission, which had given a kind of an approval where they can use the Nota for the Rajya Sabha elections. But right now the Supreme Court is telling, orally observed, that the Nota is meant only for the, that is universal adult suffrage and direct election, and not polls held by the system of proportional representation by the means of single transferable vote as done in the Rajya Sabha. So this is one of the important observations which has been coming from the Supreme Court. And the government support is that we have an Attorney General Venugopal. So when he says Nota in indirect elections such as in Rajya Sabha actually lead to the horse trading, or it might be leading to corruption or using of extra constitutional method to defeat a party candidate, which means that they are telling that the Rajya Sabha Nota part shouldn't be there, it has to be taken out. And overriding, he also mentioned that it's overriding the provision of the Article 80 Clause 4. So it is with respect to the proportional representation by the means of single transferable vote, the provisions of the representation of the People's Act 1951 and conduct of the election rules 1961. So this was one of the important lines toward the Attorney General in support of the government has been shared, and likely looks like the Supreme Court will not allow the Nota for the Rajya Sabha year after. So we have to just wait for the judgment. So this is about it. And the next one, Parliamentary Panel to probe the UK-India relations. So this is with respect to a British Parliamentary Committee which is actually looking into the relation between Britain and India. So they are actually talking about many aspects, including the impacts of the Britain visa regime as a part of wider examination for the future of the global Britain. So the tensions between the two countries have been actually tightened with respect to the India's concerns about the UK's reluctance to ease the visa norm for students and professionals. So UK's particular visas are not being very willingly, they are showing the unwillingness to ease any visa norm for the students and professionals from India. And the committee will look at the issues of the bilateral trade as well as the impact of the Britain's visa policy and cooperation on the regional security, counter-terrorism, technology, innovation and the multilateral institutions. There's something called as a global brain strategy. So here the relationship is an important test case for the government's global Britain strategy, and it pointed out to a number of questions, and those include how strong is a bilateral relationship and how should Britain balance the political, strategic and also the trade issues in determining its relationship, and does the UK visa regime facilitate the type of relationship the government seeks with India. So this is with respect to what are the important aspects they would be dealing on, and Britain is also nowadays looking on to strengthen the relations outside the EU, that's the European Union. So this is about it. The next one, US eases export controls on India. So if you see that India has actually got the major defense partner in the year 2016. So this was one of the designation which is being given by US to India. By having this designation now, US has eased the export control on high technology product sale to it by designating it as a strategic trade authorization 1 country, which means that it is STA 1 country. So which means that it's very important change which has been brought where that India's status in export control regime would be enhanced. So that what they can do, what is an advantage is that India would now be allowed to buy more advanced and sensitive technologies from the US. So why it's been even got an opportunity is because India has got the status of major defense partner in the year 2016 with respect to US. The next news item, the draft e-commerce policy will be in line with the Sri Krishna panel proposal. So this is with respect to the formulations of the draft policy of the e-commerce, which would be keeping in with the recommendations of the Justice Sri Krishnan Committee report on our data privacy. So we know that data privacy was becoming a very important issue with respect to it. Now the kind of a committee which has been set up by Justice B.N. Sri Krishna, he is the one, and under his particular commission, he would be able to give up with certain recommendations to pertaining to the data privacy. And the draft Personal Data Protection Bill 2018, it's submitted by the Justice B.N. Sri Krishnan headed expert panel. He proposed that the critical personal data of the Indian citizens be processed in centers located within the country. So one recommendation which is strongly coming is that those which has been a critical personal data of the Indian citizens, let's have it within the centers which has been located within the country, and we will also come up with a policy that will promote a free flow of business as well as address the security and the privacy concerns. So the critical part is that the draft law which has been recommended by the committee has left it to the central government to notify the categories of the personal data will be considered as critical and hence necessarily be located in India, and other personal data can be therefore transferred out of the country, but a copy that we have to retain within our country. So though when you are trying to transfer it to the other country, just ensure that even we as an Indian part will be retaining those copy of the what is being transferred. And the working groups and also the think tanks, they have also raised few issues ranging from data flow of the protection, grievance redressal, and also the data localization also included in the regulatory arrangement that could emerge for the sectors. So the Sri Krishnan, he has actually given certain recommendations pertaining to the data privacy, but there are few working groups and also the think tanks, they have also addressed few issues. So those issues are these, and the committee is telling that we would be looking on to it and we will come up with a best solution to whatever is being raised. And the details of it you have here, the privacy law in the making, you can just go on through it. And the next one, Swelect uses sun hair to make the drinking water. So this is with respect to a energy system limited. There is a source, something else, an hydro, the solar panel, to provide a pure drinking water using the sunlight and the hair. So how it actually works is that the water vapor from the hair is drawn into the source, that is through the fan, and while doing this there are certain special materials absorbs the water. The vapor is collected as a hair flow passes through a condenser. Then it flows into a reservoir where it is mineralized with calcium and magnesium. Water is pumped through a polishing cartridge before being delivered to the dispenser. They are telling that the water vapor would be first being drawn into the source through help of the fan, and then the special material would absorb the water, and once the water has been absorbed, then it moves on to the condenser. In the condenser it will be, that's a reservoir, it will be mineralized with the calcium and the magnesium, and once this has been done, the water would be pumped back to the cartridge where the water would be ready with the delivered dispensers. So this is how they are telling that with the use of the sunlight and the hair, the water can be purified, they can make the drinking water. And the price per panel will be around like 2 lakh, and it will generate up to 5 liters of water per day depending on the humidity on the sunlight. So based on the humidity and sunlight to what we have on that particular day, there would be almost like we might get around like 5 liters of the water per day, and one panel would cost around 2 lakhs. So here you have the setup of it. So this is about it. And the next one, stem cells will now fight Parkinson's. So they are telling that the stem cells will start fighting the Parkinson's. Before that, we should know what is the Parkinson's disease. So Parkinson's disease is a chronic degenerative neurological disorder that affects the body motor system, often causing shaking and other difficulties in the movement. So the people who have this Parkinson's disease, they will be having a neurological disorder where the movement of the particular body or shaking, or there would be difficulties in making with the movements. And now there is like 10 million people have this illness according to the Parkinson Disease Foundation worldwide. So on limelight of it, the Japanese scientist for the first time they have come up for the first human trial. They had done with it on the apes and the chimpanzees for the first human trial to treat the Parkinson disease by injecting the stem cells into the brain, building an earlier trial on the primates. So this particular plant, what they have is that they wanted to inject to 5 million induced pluripotent stem cells which have the potential to develop into any cell in the body into the patient's brain. So which means that they are planning to inject almost like 5 million IPS, we call it as an induced pluripotent system cells, which would be induced into the body so that they can have the capacity to develop any cell in the body which would be first injected into the patient's brain. So this is about it, and this particular iPS cells from the healthy donors be developed into a dopamine producing brain cells which are no longer present in the people with the Parkinson disease. So this producing agent will not be there into the person who has the Parkinson disease, but from a healthy donor they would be able to develop and they produce within the brain cells. And the IPC cells are created by stimulating mature already specialized cells back into the juvenile state, basically cloning without the need of the embryo. Even without having a need of an embryo, they would be able to stimulate a proper mature and a specialized cells. So this is a new sort of an relief which has come for the people who have been suffering from the Parkinson diseases. So they would be keeping them for almost like 2 years of observance. They're seeing like, does it really lead off for any sort of tumors? So over the time it might be used worldwide. So this is about it. A question for the day: election commission composition. You have to tell what does the election commission consist of 20 words, and what is the stem cells of 20 words. So these were the important news items for 31/7/2018. Thank you.